Hello, welcome to Tobisonics. Please like, subscribe, follow, you know the drill. It is Tuesday, the 8th of December 2020, and in today's episode, we're going to be cleaning up an old archive public domain recording for use in a modern pop production. And we'll be using my latest single, Military Industrial Complex, as an example.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
According to their website, iZotope describe RX as the complete audio repair toolkit. It has long been the go-to for audio repair and a polishing suite for film, television, music, podcasts, video games, sample libraries, and more. Since I completed the production for Military Industrial Complex, iZotope has upgraded RX7 to RX8. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to be using RX7 because that's what I used in the production, and we're going to be keeping things nice and simple. We're going to be limiting our work to just the plugins.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
What you can hear right now is the raw MP3, unprocessed as it came in. And what we're listening to is an extract from President Eisenhower's farewell address to the nation in 1961. And in this extract, you can hear him coin the phrase military-industrial complex for the first time. This extract is also what we use in the intro for my track, Military-Industrial Complex. We're going to start by using the De-Crackle, and what you're hearing right now is what the application is taking out of the audio. This is a really useful tool, and I really love using it. It makes it really easy to work out if you're taking too much out of the sound.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
What you're hearing now is what the plugin is doing to the sound itself. So this is the straightforward preview setting. And you can hear it's not the difference between night and day. I don't want to clean the track up too much. I want it to feel and sound the way that people have heard this particular speech for decades. But we need to take out enough noise so that when we apply the compression in production, mixing, mastering, we don't end up pulling up too much noise and making it distracting for people. Next up, we're using the mouth declick, and once again, we're outputting the clicks only. So in other words, what the plugin is taking out of the audio. You can also see that it's counting up the number of clicks that it's repairing, which is a useful indication of how much work it's doing. In terms of the other controls on these applications, I wouldn't worry about it too much. I'd start with a preset and then just dial things a little bit one way or another until it sounds good to your ear. Don't overcomplicate it.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Now we can hear what the plugin is actually doing to the audio. Here we are on the straight up preview setting. And again, it's not a great difference. When I'm using these apps, what I like to do is make small changes with a series of different applications. And at the end of the signal chain, you end up with quite a big difference. Next up, let's do a little bit of de-essing, and as before, right now we're hearing what the plugin is taking out, and I really like this option for de-essing. It's very useful to hear if you're taking too much out. You can see by the interface that there are two choices of algorithm, classic and spectral. Classic will work very much like other De-Esses that you have in your DAW or other plugins, what have you. Spectral is a little bit more fancy, gives you more options, particularly in this spectral shaping, spectral tilt area. Again, don't worry about that too much. You can see what I've done there. I've called up the preset, simple voiceover, and then I've just adjusted it a little bit one way or the other by ear until it sounds good for me.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Here we are, we're back now in the standard preview setup, so we can hear what it is that the plugin is doing to the audio. You'll notice that I've got the De-Ess set on slow. I really like this setting, particularly for voiceovers. I find it very useful for dealing with S's that kind of linger, when people are kind of lazy on their S's and they kind of sustain. It's a very good way of dealing with those things. I'd also say that when it comes to de-essing, if you have voice, always err on the side of caution. You're better off under de-essing something than over de-essing it. If you over de-ess it, it will start to sound lispy. Next up, we're going to go with the De-Verb. And now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I did this in a different order when I did the actual production. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we can work this way. Once again, we're hearing what the application is taking out of the audio signal. And again, this is very, very useful, particularly with reverb, because it lets us know if we're taking too much of the body of the actual signal, the sort of weight and emotion of the vocal can be pulled out if we take too much reverb out. You can see that my overall reduction is set relatively low, and then we have the option of tailoring the reduction in low, low mid, and high. This is very, very useful for shaping the reverb.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Back now in preview, we can hear what the De-Verb is actually doing, and it is drying the signal out quite a bit. My advice is don't dry the signal out too much. The natural reverb that comes in with the original recording will very often sit quite nicely in your production.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Here we are then back with the original raw MP3 before any processing began. Now that we've had a quick listen to that, let's put all the processing back in and see how much of a difference there is from where we started to where we ended up.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
And you can hear now that even though on each of the individual steps the difference wasn't that great, there's a pretty big difference from where we started to where we ended up. It's much cleaner, it's much drier, much easier to listen to, but it's still retaining the character, feeling, that sense of nostalgia. All we're trying to do is compensate for the compression that we know we're going to be applying through the process of putting this track together, get it to a really nice kind of pop-tight sound. Listening to this right now, honestly, if I was going to be using this in a production, I think I'd go back through the signal chain and probably back a couple of the processes off, particularly the De-Verb. It does feel like the vocal is a little bit thin in places. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I think we can leave it as it is. That we all get to learn from that particular mistake.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
If you found that useful, please like, subscribe, follow, you know the drill. Military Industrial Complex is out right now on all streaming platforms and Bandcamp. Please, please, please check it out. Have a listen to the Eisenhower speech in context, in the track itself. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments below or contact me via social media at Tobisonics. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, I'm there. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, thank you for watching. If you're on Mixcloud or the podcast, thank you for listening. Next Tuesday, good night and good noise. Stay safe and stay healthy.